Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the March 7, 2016 meeting of the Weare Board of Selectmen. We started at 6:30 with an informal, very informal coffee hour where we kind of hung around and talked. And that brings us to 7 o'clock, so I ask everyone to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'll ask you at this time to join us in a moment of silence.
I got relief. Shouldn't take the questions.
Thank you.
Sorry. I apologize.
Okay, so on our agenda is a call-in program until 8 o'clock. So anybody at home who has questions about, well, anything, but the intent is to have questions about the warrant articles that everyone's going to be going to vote on tomorrow between the hours of 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. You can call us. And is it the 7535 number?
Oh, 7527.
So the number to call, don't all call at once, 529-7527. So while we're waiting, we're going to go move ahead along with our regular agenda. And
Actually, I
we
somehow...
don't have public comment at the beginning of the agenda.
I don't know why.
I'm going to open it for public comment right now, if there's any.
Public comment?
No? Well, that was the quickest public comment we've ever had. So we'll talk, we'll go to the meeting minutes of February 22nd.
Did you get them?
22nd was talked
Yes.
about last week.
The 29th, you just got it like 4.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the same things I mentioned last week. On page 2, it's $2.76 per ton in the motion.
Yeah.
And then in the next paragraph under asphalt, third line down near the very end is there, if there are funds left, rather than is funds left. And the next paragraph, first line, Mr. Redmond's replacement, it just says replace. That's all I had on page 2. That's all I had. Short minutes.
Anybody else had any other? Jim? Nope. Yeah, entertain a motion.
Move to approve the minutes of February 22nd as amended.
I'll second it. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And we just received the 29th this afternoon, so
Do those next week.
we'll do it next week.
Gee, I rushed right through.
Was there no problems?
Not much, really.
Okay.
So now we're up to the manifest. I move we order the treasurer to sign the accounts payables and payroll checks dated March 10, 2016 as included in the following manifest. Payroll manifest of $41,045.92 for weekly payroll including payroll taxes. An accounts payables manifest of $76,902.54. A John Stark Regional payables manifest of $250,000 for the March 3rd, 2016 appropriation, for a total manifest of $367,948.46.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
And I heard the phone ring.
Me too.
So we're up to administrative report.
Okay. A couple weeks ago, we talked about an MOU. The MOU is here, I just, been approved on the other side, and I'd like you guys to sign it. It's exactly what we talked about. Pass that down.
It's the copy we looked at last week.
Yes, yep, signed by the other side. Also, you have, I handed you out the February report for the transfer station. You guys have that for your records. I also gave you, we talked last week about the, key, yours might be there. Oh, Mr. Keith.
Thank you. So we have a question on Article 10, asking for the estimated tax impact on the garage after 2016.
Yeah. No, I have that information.
He has it.
Okay.
Yeah. The tax impact is 22 cents per thousand, but it's not really a 22-cent increase because we're paying off other bonds, and that's why we have the timing of this the way it is. 2015, we actually had a tax impact on outstanding bonds of 15 cents or 16 cents. I think it was 16 cents per thousand. But then in 2015, we paid off the bond for bridge work, our bridge bond. And then this year, 2016, we have one outstanding, and we'll pay that off, and that's for the Eastman Conservation Area. So with those paid off, that 15 cent or 16 cent bond impact is eliminated. So if you were to compare your 2015 impact with your 2017, which is when the next one will come due, the difference between those two is 6 cents. So, you know, the actual 2017 tax impact is 17 cents. But because we're eliminating the other two over 15 and 16, the actual impact increase is only going to be a 6 cent increase, which on a $200,000 house, about $12 on your tax bill.
But for the cost of the garage alone, that was 22 cents?
22 cents, right? With not figuring in
Keep
the savings of paying off the other bond issues.
Thank you, whoever asked the question.
Okay, so, just hang on to your transfer station receipts and study those. Those are for February. The last week, we also talked about the bridge bond, and I handed you, Beth had put together a spreadsheet for the Peasley Bridge, and it looks like this. Okay, and basically, we used the 208,792 of the fund balance, and then we raised by taxation. So the 46,858 is actually left in the fund balance, but we said that we were going to use it for Peasley. So our response back to the state of New Hampshire has to be that we will put it on for 2017, because this is what we said we were going to use for a specific.
This is not the general fund balance.
Yes,
This
it's
is a
in-
bridge,
It's in the general fund balance.
but it was put there because of it was appropriated for the bridge construction work, right?
Do you want to answer that, Jan?
How
Sorry.
much was? I'm
There was
sorry, go ahead.
$208,792 left in the bridge bond fund. We needed to raise the other 86,000, I
Yep.
believe, plus, because of the estimated original cost. Came in under cost. So the monies would have gone into the general fund, the 86,000.
Mhm.
So that's where it's now, the balance is now, which is 46,000 plus.
So it would be my understanding, because you need 20% of the match at approximately 600,000 is 120,000, so you don't have enough anyway. So I think Jan and I and Beth talked, and we're going to have to, if we're going to go forward, we could craft an article possibly like we did for the Peasley one, but we are not going to be able to do it before it goes to the ballot on 17. So that's all. But that was the accounting I think you guys were looking for.
A question, why doesn't that 46 $858 remain in the bridge bond fund? Because we appropriated that 86,000, correct?
Yes.
We spent that 86,000, and then we spent whatever else to bring it up to the cost for the town. So is there something that says that money appropriated, the bridge bond money has to come first before we spend the money that is appropriated? And I don't understand why, because this would give us a head start, even though we'd still need to
You
appropriate
can
more.
still do that.
Yeah,
I mean,
but-
you can still do it, that's what she's saying, to create it out of the, next year, but not put it into the bridge bond fund, because we're trying to get that thing closed. It's been almost 20 years, and technically, it's, I think I've told you before, it's not legal.
Well, if it wasn't legal in the 19th year and nobody said anything, then why not go to the 20th year and use the money toward the, you know what I mean? Rather-
Do you want me to explain the ramifications?
Well, all I'm saying is that, if we need $120,000 toward that bridge in order to match in 2017, then if we could have 78,000, whatever would be the difference that we're asking for, and use this toward it.
We can.
Yeah, we can.
still
We can
use
do
it.
the same way.
That's what we're trying to say, but use it out from the general fund.
But I can't really give the green light because some of the engineering cost is more than the 48,000. So we can write it the same way we wrote it for Peasley.
Right.
We have the 48 left. So you'd only be raising the 70.
Okay, but won't we have to have an article that says that we're taking $46,858 from the undesignated fund balance to apply
Yes.
toward the bridge?
Which is, I think, what was
That
written.
will go
It's
into the unassigned fund balance.
Right. And Frank's going to tell us that's not appropriate.
Keith, do you have the last year's
First of all,
book?
we don't know if this new bridge, whatever is
that one
being
there.
done right now, was included in the bond when the $1 million bond went out.
So we had to
20
check and
years
see if
ago. I
Lowell
don't
was
think-
included in the total.
Right. So if it wasn't for that purpose, you can't do it for another purpose.
See if Lowell wasn't on the list of red listed bridges at the time we borrowed the $1 million, then we couldn't
Oh, I see.
use it.
Okay.
But if it is, we could write it the same, I don't wanna say it
Right.
that
But
way.
it would come from the unexpended fund balance,
see what
I
we
think
did
it
here.
was how it was worded.
Yeah, we did it last year, 208 from the unexpended fund
And it
balance.
would be in that fund anyway. I mean, that's the fund.
We'd have to do the same way.
The problem is we have two different funds with a similar name.
What do you mean? Oh, a bridge fund and a,
Well, it's being called a fund balance or a, but that's not the
I don't know what you're
undesignated
looking at.
fund balance.
That's the sheet that Beth had.
okay. This fund balance here was the bridge bond fund
Okay,
at the 208,792.
Going into the Peasley.
Going,
Towards.
yeah.
Okay.
We were gonna take that, I think how it's worded.
that was the full amount?
No, the full amount was 208 plus 40,000, whatever it was.
No, that was in that fund?
Yes, that was the balance in that fund.
The 248 was.
No,
The 208.
208.
208,792
Okay.
from the unexpended fund balance with 86,372 to be raised by taxation. That's how the article was written last
And
time.
we used
Okay.
40,000 of the 86.
That was raised by taxation.
So there's $40,000 that
46,000.
we raised by taxation
Yes.
and didn't spend.
86.
86 was raised by taxation, but we only spent 40,000. So there's $46,000 that we raised and didn't spend because it didn't cost
It's
what we
gonna go
thought.
back to the fund balance, it's gonna be the
Right.
actually unassigned fund balance
Okay,
at the end of the
Same
year.
pot.
so that doesn't mean then that that is automatically appropriate
No.
to go towards
No.
No,
funding the
it's
new
not
bridge.
automatic, because you have to figure out, as we said, if we borrowed $1 million 20 years ago for this list that we gotta find of bridges that were on the red list, If Lull is not on it, then we can't use the bridge, any of the bridge money for that bridge.
Well, we
'cause it
shouldn't
wasn't-
have any more bridge money left anyway, because we use the balance, the 208, we use the rest on this one.
Yes,
So there's
it's,
0 in there.
Yes,
Okay,
it's in the fund balance.
so we start from scratch with this new.
That's kind of where we had
or
talked
you
about.
can use, if
you
you
wanna talk?
wanted to use 46,000 that was left from raising taxation towards it.
Tim's bursting to talk.
Oh, go ahead.
Thank you, Tim Redmond, Public Works. There's two things that are going on. First of all, you can't get stuck on that $600,000 number because that's a 3.5-year-old number
Mhm.
that has not been updated at any time. We don't know what the present engineering costs are. We don't know what the present construction costs are. So that is a project that conceivably could be done by the Public Works crew because it's a simple con span or an arched concrete span with footings on the dry sides on both sides. So it could be less expensive, but if you were going to put it out to bid and you were going to have a contractor do it, that's a worst-case scenario 3.5 years ago. Okay?
Yeah, and that's the only number we had.
Right. So you can't get stuck on the 600,000 and have people think that the town's only going to have to appropriate 120,000 as their 20%. We don't know exactly what the number is at this point. Secondly, the reason that didn't appear as an article this year was because of the River Road Bridge at Buzzell Hill. That has some structural issues that need to be addressed. At CIP, I brought that forth to CIP because I thought that was more important to be done sooner than the Lowell Road culvert. CIP asked me to get the State of New Hampshire Bridge Engineer's opinion. We went through that process and they said it's got another year in the bridge down there. I don't think you should wait. I think you should be looking at either a combined article to do both projects under one new bond, or you should take care of the River Road Bridge at Buzzell Hill first. I know it's an 80-20 funding on Lowell Road, but I wouldn't want to see the River Road Bridge be downgraded and closed or have a structural damage due to the rusting that's going on underneath. So there's work to be done on both projects, but I just wanted to be sure you didn't get stuck on the $600,000 number on it.
Tim, I have a question about the Lowell Road. If it's basically a large culvert, and it's something that can be done by the Public Works Department, then aren't we talking about an incredible amount of money when we're talking $600,000? I mean, it seems like a culvert would be much, much less than that. I don't know.
Just to begin with, the state does not permit culverts to be replaced in place of a culvert. They do not allow them anymore. You have to build a structure, a concrete structure to replace that, because the problem there was overtopping. The road overtopped, and they will not allow you to put another culvert in place of a culvert that's there now. They have stream crossing rules, they have rules related to wildlife and fish and everything that's going on. So it would have to be a restored stream bed, open bottom project. There's engineering to be done on the environmental side. There's engineering to be done on the structural side. There's other engineering fees involved. Now, it doesn't mean you can't search for another engineering firm that might give you a better price than what the town has been getting. But when I came here, we were with Kleinfelter in the Peasley project, so we continued with Kleinfelter.
Has
I think-
Kleinfelder done anything on Lull but to give you a price?
They did a packet, sort of a feasibility packet,
Okay.
which I have upstairs, but it was something that I believe it was probably brought forward to request that the bridge be included or the culvert be included in the bridge aid program, which is an 80-20 program. You had to produce some documents for the state in order to be considered. So I would expect that, short of preliminary work being done, which I have no record of anything being paid for on Lowell Road at this time, that would be my guess.
And it was River Road Bridge that we talked about getting in our 2017.
No,
warrant article.
Lowell.
It was.
Yeah, it was Lull, because that's where the whole Nancy Mayville, Tim's email showed up about Nancy reached out to Tim.
So I tried to get the state to transfer the 80-20 funding from the Lowell Road culvert to the River Road Bridge. And they denied my request because they had already paid an 80-20 funding on that bridge in 1998.
when
And
they,
they will not pay
Yeah.
another 80-20 funding on a bridge that's under 20 years old. So that one is going to be on the town, but at this point in time, it's mostly sandblasting, painting, possibly restoring the bridge deck, and some of the beams underneath may have to be repaired. But it's not a complete replacement. It will require closure for a period of time while they do the work. But the opinion of the engineer was that when that bridge was built and the deck was installed, they used corrugated metal for bridge decking, and they put asphalt pavement on the corrugated metal. And it did not last as long as a concrete deck would have had spent the extra money to put a concrete deck on that bridge. So at this point in time, the recommendation would be to install a concrete deck on that. If you do any substructure work and paint it and sandblast it, to put the money into a concrete deck. That changes the approaches slightly on the both south and north side of it, some work on that and some guardrail work, but the structure of the bridge does not have to be removed. It's mostly sound. There are some issues with where the beams rest on the concrete perches on both ends on the abutments. And it's easy to see if you go under there and have a look.
That seems like a young bridge to have trouble.
That bridge was what they call Corten steel, which is supposedly a self-sealing rusting steel. You see the guardrails that are rust color on the edge of the road. You notice the structure on that bridge is rust colored. That's supposed to be self-sealing and rusting steel where it rusts to a point and it stops. Well, it didn't do that under the bridge. It continued to get worse because of air circulation issues and because of the fact that it's a river right directly underneath it. And I don't know who to blame for anything, and I don't want to lay the blame, but I do know that the highway department washes the bridges in town every year, and since I've been here, we wash the bridges, including that bridge, every spring. We get out there with the old fire truck that the fire department gave to the highway crew. We drop a line in the river, we pump water out of the river, and we flush all the decking, the scuppers, the expansion joints, and then go underneath and wash off all the beams and all the perches to get as much rust, or salt rather, not rust, to get the salt off of there, which we consider to be the corrosive agent underneath the bridge. And when Carl was here, the crew did it all the years that Carl did it. And we've been doing it every year since I started. So we have not ignored the bridge. It's just happening, and it is what it is. And River Road being a fairly important north-south route, commercial route for truck traffic, fire engines, the highway department vehicles, I certainly think that that would take precedent over the culvert on Low Road. Even if, God forbid, you gave up the 80-20 funding on Low Road, you're better off to fix the River Road Bridge first than you are to worry about that at this point. Okay? And I do have an estimate for the repairs on that River Road Bridge as well, and that was in the $580,000 range. And that was last fall when I prepared numbers for CIP. Anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Thank you.
Can I just comment on this, Naomi?
feel free.
Transfer station.
Yeah, I didn't
quality
really
fund.
study it because it came in last. Go ahead.
It's hard to study it when we have just January and February on the.
Oh, right, I didn't
Do
reprint.
14 months.
Oh, you want
Or-
14 months? Because last
Either
time
that
she
or-
gave me two different printouts.
Okay.
Because you guys should have the 15 still.
Okay,
Because last time I gave you the 15s and 1 month of
all
16
right.
as a something.
Even from August, when we made the change, would give us,
But what she's saying is if we go back and look at the 15, that's complete, we should just keep it with this.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to. I mean, it's, yeah, until you have a track record, so. I can ask her to do what Tom just asked, or you want to just, then you'd be able to compare August forward. That's when your new changes started.
I find it helpful.
Compare
Back.
before the
Yeah,
change
look
too.
back. Months before.
So you want to just leave the two printouts?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
I just wanted to.
Okay,
have
yeah, last
16,
time I gave you
15
two because it was only 1 month.
Yep.
Okay.
yeah, I
Yep.
just remind our
Oh,
grand listening
yeah,
audience that.
sorry.
I think it's ringing, so I think it's working.
Oops, good.
You can though.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna look at the number again. So we hear phone ringing. It sounds like maybe somebody called 529-7527. encourage you to do the same if you have questions. Can we talk about this or not?
We can after as a non-meeting if you want.
Oh, I meant in public. It just says we're signing something. Mention what we're signing.
I don't know that answer.
Okay.
I guess why couldn't you just say it? We agreed upon it. We talked about it.
Yeah, the minute we
Yeah.
sign it, it's public record.
Okay.
There's three
Well,
now?
Just as
Is it
yeah,
three
there's
now?
three, yeah.
Okay.
Just as
Public
Naomi was
record.
passing a paper down and said, "This is a MOU." We passed it down. Just to tell you what it is, it's a memorandum of understanding between the Teamsters Highway Department Union and the town of Weare regarding compensatory time. So it makes their policy the same as
Right.
as the rest of the town employees.
Right. Okay. I'll just quickly go down, we can go down through, I'm still waiting on a map for the no-through trucking.
But I saw one on
A map?
like I saw one on there earlier tonight.
Nope, I don't have a map.
Swore I saw that folded up.
Oh, yeah, it was the tax map that was left on that table. I moved it.
All right.
You're right, so you weren't losing your mind. Then, tomorrow, as you know, you all have a job to do at the votes. And then Saturday, I got a green light from the majority for Saturday. We're gonna do interviews for DPW position. I'll have to post it. 8 a.m. We're gonna start. Transfer station fees. Just a couple things I wrote down near the bottom. The summer schedule, just as a reminder, May will be here for you know it. I know it's March, but I don't know if there's a preference. We've always gone to the bi-weekly after Memorial Day and stopped just after Labor Day. You guys can think about that. Don't have to decide today. The other request I had is Columbus Day is a floating holiday. Typically, we get 2 floating holidays, and the building usually stays open. There's been a request due to the fact that the schools and the post office, and I know Citizens Bank is closed, so we really, I mean, I can ask the clerk's office how many people actually come in, but I think everybody thinks that we're closed. So there's been a request if we could use it and close the building, but it would still be a floating holiday, but to close the building, so.
How would it still be a floating holiday?
Well, because you are allowed that to take another day, so. Go ahead.
Except we eliminated that language. So rather than having 2 floating holidays, as we did in the past,
Mhm.
where people had to wait till Columbus Day before they could
Yeah,
take
you
it,
upload it,
we just changed it to 2 personal
Yeah.
days that they can take any time,
okay.
which means that people might very well have already taken them before Columbus Day.
Yeah, no, I said I would ask, I understand that. It's just, I was approached by because we do keep the building open. So we can leave it the way we've always left it.
A follow-up,
Okay.
Article 10. So the tax impact for the garage, we noted as stated as 22 cents per thousand. The question is, for the bond payment cost, is 2017 22 cents per thousand, or is it 6 cents per thousand? The way I understood, the way we answered it,
Be
it's 22 cents per
22 cents
per
thousand for
thousand.
17.
Yeah.
Right, for your debt. Okay. No, could be
I'm sorry, maybe I
confusing.
confused people on that. I was just talking the difference between what we were paying in 2015 on bond payments compared to what we'd be paying on 2017, and that difference is 6 cents, but the actual cost of the bond is 22 cents per thousand. And then it goes down from there because your interest over time goes down. As your interest goes down, the total payment for the year goes down. So over the period of 10 years,
We said we were gonna find for 10
Uh,
years.
your payment would go down a little each year, depending, lower the principal, the less the interest.
Okay,
We're half halfway through, we've had 2 calls.
So I just, and that'll finish mine. Tom brought up a good point in regards to the floating holiday. Just, it finishes my report. Because of the change in the front loading of the 2,
Right.
that some people might have used it already, so
So we'll keep it open.
we'll just leave it open. Yep, thank you. Frank's got a question, I think.
Good. Step right up. You don't need to call, you can,
Wow, good.
Well, we don't wanna sit here for a half hour looking
I
at
have
each
to
other.
watch them rebroadcast it from the YouTube.
What you have to do is, you have to take out your cell phone and
Call.
make believe you're calling
Yes.
us.
Cell phone?
He doesn't have one.
I can do that. I don't know how to use it too well. My mother knew how to use it better than I do. That's just in case I get a flat tire and I have to call for help from home.
You need a smartphone, it'll be self-teaching.
Pardon me?
Never mind.
That wouldn't help me, believe me. I can let you, my question centers around the police crew, replacement police cruisers. And I was hoping there would be a couple of extra copies of the community news so I could pass it out to you. I'll let you borrow this one, and I'll try to wing it. Because this one here has a schedule for replacement. So if you...
Want me to go make copies?
Pardon me?
Want me to go make just a regular copy?
No, I think I can do what I need. I made myself a couple of notes.
Okay.
So, because I didn't want you all to be in the dark, but as I was asking my questions. It shows there in the paper, and of course, this is way after the 11th hour, but it's something that I actually went back to look at probably about 4 days ago. In that schedule, it shows for a couple of the vehicles that are gonna go down the road, that you're gonna get rid of. The 2008 Expedition and the 2008 Taurus. It says on the bottom of that, bottom portion of that chart, that the police chief is gonna get the Explorer. And I guess my question is when you folks get this information from the CIP, to approve it, not approve it, I don't know how much questioning was asked about, and I don't know if that schedule was available at the time, but if any of you had looked at it, even when you got the paper, the newspaper, and if it raised any questions in your mind when you see it in the print. I'll tell you what I saw. The 2008 Expedition is 8 years old. It's got I rounded it down. It's got 64,000 miles on it. That's only 8,000 miles a year that vehicle has on it. I think it's got some life left in it. There is a trade-in value of something over $12,000. I'm wondering if that vehicle was put in that schedule to trade in because of the trade-in value, you get more from it. And if that's the case, then, and when we get newer cars, are we gonna keep them for a short period of time so we can trade them in with a higher trade-in value? That question came to my mind. Maybe it's not justified to get, I know the article's already written, that schedule's already there. But so it seems a little unreasonable to get rid of a vehicle like that. I didn't write down here what the repair cost, I think it was in the $1,000 range.
1,850.
18, okay.
I'm not understanding your question, I don't think.
Well, my question is when you folks okay the article for the 5 cruisers, do you just depend on the information that you're getting from the CIP, which goes through the planning board, which ultimately comes to you folks? And if that schedule of replacement was available at the time when you were making your decision?
I don't believe that.
I don't remember.
Schedule was, I don't think there had been like a hard set schedule as to which
okay?
exact vehicles down the
Okay.
road
Yeah.
are gonna be replaced.
Well, that's,
Some were
okay, well,
determined.
But that schedule, I'm just
Yeah,
gonna, that
actually, that
schedule
was
came out of the
pretty
CIP presentation that you guys had, that bound
Well,
copy. That came out of there with, and so that was presented to us in hard form
I
okay.
don't know
from the
if
CIP.
I don't know as if we knew who was gonna drive what vehicles. but-
It says in there,
But the 13 Explorer retaining is not the same Explorer as,
it's an expedition.
I understand that. Well,
Okay.
the rest of my question about your decision to approve for the 5 cars.
so you're suggesting, I'm gonna ask, you're suggesting we should have been asking for 3 cars and,
Well,
And retained
I'm suggesting that the question should have been asked of what cars you're getting rid of and what cars are getting transferred. Because if you look at the Taurus, which he's using now, which presumably, as his contract stated, was gonna have all kinds of multimedia put in it. And I asked at the time, you know, what that cost was, and didn't know at the time, so. But that 2008 Taurus, that's getting sold. That's getting replaced. And that car's only got 83,000 miles on it, which is 2008. That's only 10,000 miles a year. I mean, that's well below the government, and I don't know what the government average is now. It used to be 12,000 miles. But to me, that car has a lot of life left in it. And keep in mind that there's over 25,000, that car specifically, over 25,000 miles a year is being used just to get the police chief back and forth to work. So it's really kind of a, just a transportation vehicle.
Quick, on your
So-
question, Frank, if I could butt in. You had 2 parts to it, and they're yes and yes. First part was, is the expedition being traded or discontinued, whatever, now because of its high trade-in value?
Can I see that, Jim?
The answer is yes. And in the future, are we gonna trade in cars earlier in order to maintain trade-in value? And the answer to that is yes. The main point of this article, or one of the main points, well, let's say 2. Most of the vehicles over there are worn out. Okay? We're keeping 2 vehicles. We're keeping the Explorer, and we're keeping the car that used to be the canine car, which is going to continue to be used as the animal control vehicle. And then we're replacing everything else. But part of this also is looking at a replacement schedule, even with the new cars, that would keep them up to date, so we wouldn't get into this situation again where we've got 5 cars that are ready for the graveyard all at once. There'd be a regular replacement, and that's spelled out in the CIP, and the chief has spelled that out to us several times. So, you wait, I guess it's 2 years, and then you trade in 1 vehicle, and wait another year, trade in 2 vehicles, and then, so you replace them all the time, so you always have a high trade-in value, and you never have to go out and ask for $124,000 all at once. That's the point of the article.
Okay,
Chief Kelly, if I'm wrong on that, please correct me.
I think with a little bit more study, with that schedule shows that probably you could have lightened the load this year and gotten a couple of less cars. And again, keep the Expedition because it has relatively low mileage. That would have been 1 less car, 1 less new car to ask for this year. The Taurus, it absolutely makes no sense to me at all why you're taking that car and selling it, because it's just a transportation car with, again, the expensive multimedia in it. That car could be kept, and that would be a second reduction in asking for a new car. So you wouldn't have asked for 5, you're asking for 5 cars
There was 7, now there'll be 5.
No, in the warrant article. I
There's
think
5, right, but you're
5.
getting rid of
So
7.
you could have asked for really 3 to lighten the load this year. And again, for now, for the police chief to take the Explorer, which is low mileage, relatively low mileage, is fully equipped at what it needs to be, the purpose that it needs to be, you get to keep it. So you could have reduced by, again, I'm not necessarily being critical, because I don't know what you discussed about the 5 cruisers, but the way I see it, you could have kept 2 of them that you are trading in or getting rid of, and only asked for 3 cars this year.
The only problem with that, Frank, is we would not be able to do that rotation process that would keep the trade value up on all the vehicles in the future. And you know, when we've gone out and asked for 1 vehicle or 2,
It's been shot down.
it's been shot down.
Right.
And then we're right back where we started.
Right.
So what we're trying to do is put into place a systematic replacement schedule where that we always have working vehicles, low maintenance costs, and high trade-in value.
Right, and I agree with all of that, but I'm saying to lighten the load for this year, if a study had been, looked at that schedule closely, you know, maybe 1 or 2 people on the board might have seen the same thing that I saw, and at least it would have been some food for discussion.
Frank, can I just point out that the mileage that you stated from there was through July? So we've got another 8 more months of miles on those vehicles now.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know how many more miles, but that mileage was through 7:30.
Okay.
So,
I don't know.
so I'm not sure how many
Well, I guess
miles
I
are
do.
on it either, but just for clarification, there isn't 64,000 on it today.
And that's fine, you know, I don't mind using updated numbers.
Yeah, I don't know what it
I was
is,
just
but,
using-
yeah, no, and that's what we were presented, because at the
Sure.
time CIP was working,
Yeah, okay.
so.
And then if you'd allow me still the vehicles, if the article passes and is there, and if the board thought it appropriate, is there any way to keep the police chief's car, to let him use it the way that it's equipped, the way he needs it, and get 1 less car? I know the people will, if they approve it, they're appropriating money for all the cars, but, you know, it's certainly after the fact. Probably hard for the board to say no, because the money's gonna be there for a new vehicle. But it just seems,
I don't know, the article says 5
right,
in the article itself,
right.
so I don't
So
know
are
that
you
we would really.
obligated to pay 5?
I would think so, because we're asking for it, and if the voters say yes to 5, I think we're kind of obligated, just like if we asked for 5, we couldn't go out and get 6 if we got a better deal.
Okay. And then my last question, still in the cards, and if the article passes and the police chief gets the Explorer, is there any idea what the cost is gonna be to, is he taking it as it's equipped? Do we have to transfer multimedia items into the Explorer? Does it get stripped of the black and white, which costs? So is there a cost incurred on giving him the Explorer?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay. All right, I'll take my paper back.
Oh, it's right there.
Okay, thanks.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Okay. Don't have anything else, so.
529-7527. Anybody would like to follow up on Frank's question, or Article 10, or any other of the,
Articles.
how many articles?
Frank, you have the question?
36 articles.
I can do another one.
Go ahead. We're just gonna sit and look at each other if we don't.
See, I didn't do these at the deliberative session.
No?
The article for the fire department and for the fire vehicle, the forestry vehicle.
You know the number?
I think
Gonna
it's
be
20.
15, 16, 17?
16,
I
17.
think it's 15, 16, 17, or
Oh,
something close to that.
18's for the forestry vehicle.
All right, so it's
Yeah,
16,
18 is the
17, 18.
forestry
Yeah.
vehicle.
Okay, within that plan, it's to give the fire chief the pickup truck. I'm curious to know the board's opinion. if you take the forestry truck now and put it beside an SUV, I'm not talking about the Durango, I'm talking about, something upgraded, even a better used one. So if you take the forestry truck and an SUV, I'd like the board to tell me, or the fire chief, which is the more practical vehicle for a fire chief to have.
I'm not an expert in fire chief
Well, we
vehicles.
have somebody here that is, so.
There's nothing to prevent in the future making a change if you're suggesting it. This article purchases a more heavy-duty vehicle to use as a forestry truck. That's the point of it. There's no trade-in involved because the whole thing basically is paid for out of the special revenue fund. So, it doesn't have a tax impact because the money is in the special revenue fund to pay for it, to upgrade to a more heavy-duty vehicle. You get rid of the Durango, which is all rusted out, and the chief drives what is now the pickup truck used as the forestry vehicle. Now, if the chief decides that's not a good match, he can come in next year and we can look at making a change. We can't make the change at this point. That's not a part of this article, and we do have to get rid of the Durango. So it gives us a vehicle for the chief's vehicle that's in good shape. And, if he comes back to us and says next year, that's more heavy duty than what I need or whatever, then we have a chance to make that decision. We can't make it now because the article's written. We're moving forward with it. So, I'm not trying to tell Bob not to speak if he wants to go ahead, but there's nothing that
We
can
have
be
time.
done about it now. It's just,
Right.
Right, but this article is just asking for the new forestry vehicle.
right, it doesn't
Right.
say anything about the
Well,
old.
the purpose talks about what we would like to do after that happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we're not obligated based on the wording of the warrant article.
It's just
And
the
and
thought
I,
process behind
and
it.
I know that it was to really kind of, I think I know it was really to replace the Durango, okay, and get a heavier duty forestry vehicle. But, and I haven't seen photos of other towns for quite a while, but a lot of other towns, some other towns, they have used army trucks. They fix them up, they paint them nice colors, and, a 2.5-ton truck will do a lot, and it's 4-wheel drive, and maybe this new one will be too. So, there might have been more economical ways of, getting the Durango replaced. But I don't know, again, I know you got the information from the CIP committee, but I'm not too sure how conservative they are and, what brainstorming went through that. But it seems to me that,
Was that the driver for getting that new forestry vehicle?
What's that?
Getting rid of the Durango?
No, please,
Please, Because that's not the way I understood it.
Yeah,
That's not the way I
the
understood
purpose
it.
of this article is to address the issue that the forestry is undersized for how we use it, and it's not, I don't wanna use it's not safe, but it's really at its maximum weight rating. We needed a better platform for that. That was in the CIP, it was in the CIP schedule. The Durango is nearly completely used up of serviceable life. It has a serious rust issue. It may not pass inspection. I was surprised it passed inspection last year, but it's definitely much worse this year. By moving the forestry up in the schedule slightly to address that issue, we could repurpose the pickup truck, which still has quite a bit of life left in it, and so a very economical solution instead of buying, say, a $30,000 SUV for the to replace the Durango, and then 3 years from now come back and say, oh, we need $60,000 for forestry. We move the forestry up to say we need $60,000 for the forestry, which we can pay cash for because we have it in the special revenue fund, and then we can repurpose the pickup truck and almost and I hate to use this word save, because Frank doesn't like that, but almost saving that
I
30.
like the word, it's just I
Okay.
know how it's applied.
But we're almost saving $30,000 by repurposing the pickup truck now than waiting until we use the life up of that, and then replacing 2 vehicles, or really placing one and repurposing one now. Does that mean, there's no intention on my part to come back in a year or two and say we need a different vehicle because this one isn't working out? I mean, I think this one will work out for the foreseeable future.
As a
And-
chief's vehicle, you mean?
Yeah, kind of that every day I gotta go do inspections and all that other stuff that I do. In a perfect world, we might recycle a vehicle out of the police department if they were, using vehicles that were, appropriate for us. In where I used to work, the forestries were kind of recycled out of DPW. DPW doesn't use vehicles this small. All their stuff seems to be bigger. We're really kind of boxed into having to go out and purchase a vehicle. That answer?
No, I get that, but I just wanted,
Yeah,
I thought there was a little more
I felt it to be the most economical use of the money to accelerate the forestry replacement, because it kind of killed 2 birds with one stone.
And then just a quick
Go ahead.
follow-up. No?
No, we have time.
Then, I know I called Sue and I asked her a few weeks ago, because I wasn't sure, I was pretty sure. But that forestry truck has a plow to it, which I thought was probably a pretty good purchase. It was it was not included originally, something that was, bought afterwards. Maybe the forestry truck, maybe they're gonna buy a plow for it. But, short of buying a plow for the forestry truck, now, I think probably wintertime, that the present forestry truck with a plow on it, the EMTs can take it out and clean the building during the day as, the inches of snow piles up. The fire chief may not be there to do that. So you've lost somewhat that ability unless you call, Department of Public Works, that's been up for, 24 hours, and, do a swipe in the fire station. So I think you've lost a little bit of flexibility possibly with the absence of that plow available. Unless the fire chief's gonna come in at 2 o'clock in the morning and clean around the fire.
But I'm
Which
gonna
I-
come now and explain what our intention is.
Okay, that would be great.
Yeah, Frank's right, the pickup truck does have a snow plow. We were not intending to transfer that to the new vehicle. We're gonna keep it on the one that it has. And that the intent, as I stand here right now, is to make that vehicle available when we need it. If it's gonna snow, or there's some thought as to leaving it for the duty officers better at night, because it will have all this stuff set up for them. But the snowplow has been very valuable for us, not only in helping out DPW in keeping up with the snowfall at the fire stations, but also to provide access to people's property, when they have that snowstorm. So I don't envision any changes to how we deploy the plow, and I certainly see that we're gonna have that available as conditions warrant in town and not someplace else.
Donna's turn.
Go ahead.
Hi, Donna Osborne. I'd like to put Tim on the spot. I understand this weekend, past weekend, another highway department in Northfield burnt with all the equipment in the building. I'm definitely gonna say I'm for the article because I know how desperate we need it. But I'd like to have Tim try to explain why I should vote for this if I am on the edge of the money part of it and building the building.
Can I take a first crack at it
Sure,
before we put them on the spot?
sure.
I was anticipating a question come up maybe, because we've been questioned on it a time or two. and the statement about asking for it
Now
every.
you gotta convince me.
Well, we've been asking for it for a number of years, and the reason we don't have it is not because there's not support for it in town, but because of the threshold being 3/5 for the bond. We haven't quite made 3/5. The last couple of times, and I asked Naomi to pull out old town reports, which she did. And the last couple of times we've asked for it, there's been a majority of the voters in favor. Just again, not that threshold of 3/5. And I think the group that was put together, Tom and Steve served on with a number of other people in town, did a lot of homework. And that was another question that had come up in the past, is how much, what does it include? Is this really needed? Is anybody looked at or considered X, Y, and Z? Because no matter which direction we went, somebody asked a question about, well, have you considered this? So I think that group really spent a lot of time and put a lot of work into looking at all of the different options, including visiting some of the other surrounding ones and speaking with Tim and looking at the fleet. And so I think the plan in place, although it's not a plan that has construction document quality plans, it's a concept that has been well thought out. And the inflation on construction has been 5%, 6% a year. So, the longer you wait to build a building, the more that cost escalates faster maybe than people's pays have been. And if that doesn't answer your question, you'd
Steve's
still
here
like to
too.
have someone else respond. Sure.
Sure, Steve.
Convince me.
Convince me.
Hi, Steve Roberts, and I served on the committee, public committee for the highway garage for this past year. We've done 6 public presentations, answered questions, talked about the project. The town last year voted no to spend money for engineering and plans, so our job was a little bit more difficult to be able to come up with a concept, but I think we did really good. What we did was we took and looked at what our needs were, not at what our wants, but we looked at our wants, and then we looked at the needs, and we settled on what we exactly need. We took the plans that were previously drawn for 2013 proposal, and we got permission from the architect to slightly alter them to make it fit the size that we were looking at square footage wise. And so we have these plans. I don't know where the camera's at. I don't know if they can. So we have, probably can't see that. We have just a kind of a drawing, conceptual drawing. If we get the funding for the building, we'll be looking at a design build concept. So there will be engineered drawings that will have to be approved as part of the bid process. And then the building would be constructed according to those approved plans. We tried to make it so that it was easy to add on to, should the need arise to add on to it, to make sure that there was enough land there. We looked at the questions that had previously come up at prior meetings, town meetings and hearings and things, and we tried to address those concerns. One of the big things was a sprinkler system. We looked at the possibility of sprinkling versus not sprinkling, and the size of building that we're looking at needs to be sprinkled. But also, with what's gone on in the state in the last few years with other highway garages, we felt that it was really important, and that's what we were hearing from the townspeople in the previous presentations, is that the townspeople wanted some protection there too. So the building will be fully alarmed with a detection system, and it'll have a sprinkler system. Because there is no municipal water down there, we have to put in a cistern, which is a big holding tank, that'll be full of enough water to provide water to the sprinkler system for a period of time. And also it needs to have a pump to drive the pressure needed to run the sprinkler system. And that's all included in our cost for that.
How much
Yes.
is a sprinkler?
Um, we got a good budget price from, from a local sprinkler company that they really did a good job for us. It has to be engineered for the building, but he took our plan and gave us an estimate. And the outside work, hold on, let me put my glasses on, excuse me. Okay, the cistern is estimated at $66,000 and the pump $40,000 for $106 outside the building. And then the inside system is actually priced within the square footage cost that we estimated for the building, but that was figured to be about $35,000. So you're talking $140,000 for the sprinkler. $141,000 estimate for the sprinkler itself, and that would include the inside and outside. Now, what we did in our cost was we broke it down to a square footage cost of $105 a square foot, and that includes the building, the foundation, the building itself, and everything in the building. And then it was, I believe it's $184,000, was it?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That is for the extra outside work, well, septic, site work, sprinkler, cistern and pump, generator, things like that. So, and then the other question that was asked was the site work. Sorry, I dropped my things and they went everywhere. What was asked at a previous town meeting is this site going to support the building that we're looking to put there? Is it an old fill site? Is it ledge? And there was no engineering done before. So we actually have a report. Harry Weatherby, who is a engineer who does the vast majority of his work that he does today is site, I don't know what the technical name for it is, but
Test bore.
evaluation for site for commercial buildings like this. That's a lot of what he does now. And so he came in at no cost to the town, and we used the town excavator to dig test pits. And he read the test pits and printed us a report. It's all original ground. There's no fill there. There is a little bit of, he said, broken ledge in one corner that was close to where we would be, and said that if it rises above the footing elevation, it should be able to be removed with a hoe ram, one of those pounders that goes on the excavators. So he said it shouldn't be too bad of a cost there. So we had that, and one other thing I want to say too is that one of the things that we discussed was the questions came up of, should we privatize and therefore not need a new highway garage, or should we contract out our snow plowing? And it was affirmed. It was voted in. Let's see here. This is the Weare Master Plan from 1994, and it talks about the highway garage, and I don't have here it is. The department started purchasing its own vehicles and equipment in 1984. So that's when we decided that we were is that when we ended private contracting, or I don't know exactly, but the decision was made for the town to go to its own equipment. And it has been reaffirmed several times, including last year's purchase of the grader. So, to me, that, several times it's been an affirmation that the town supports a highway department doing our own work. So in that discussion, which included the difficulties with private contracting, getting people to commit to doing it, and then the problems that happen, and So, but in the master plan, it did, talk about the town committing to do that. So I think to have a good facility, it's not a fancy building. It's a very, very basic building that we're looking at. And very standard. We specify, anything that we do, we're gonna specify standard to keep the cost down. We don't want anything custom that's gonna multiply the cost per square foot. And so there's a couple of things. Number one, we're spending about $3,000 a year just for the block heaters on the trucks because they're in that shed outside, so they have to be plugged in during the winter months. So we're spending a tremendous amount of electricity, and electricity, if it goes up the way they're talking, who knows what the sky will be on that. The second thing is we have quite an investment in equipment. And so to be able to properly take care of that equipment, we're gonna certainly get more life and better quality of life out of that equipment. This building's gonna have a wash bay in it, so that, after a snowstorm, they're out in the salt and everything, they can go through the wash bay, get a lot of that stuff off. The drivers can work on their trucks inside during a cold day, and so that's a very efficient use of their energy. I know from experience, when it's really, really cold out and you're trying to do something, nothing goes very well or very fast. And so I think that's important. And the other thing is that when they know there's a storm coming, they can preload the sanders, because now the sanders have to be outside where it's freezing. And if the material freezes inside the sander, then it's not gonna work. Things are gonna break. So we can also save time with that, so. Anything you wanna add, Jack? Jack was on the committee too, so.
Can you just,
The other risk you run with the block heaters is that, and having experience with this with my own truck, had one of them that almost caught fire, because you run the risk of running the cord. They're just drawing constantly, and it'll overheat, and you could melt the cord and then start a vehicle fire, and that's a very common thing for any vehicle that's plugged in at any time. So I think that to save the money, in the long run with the equipment, you're better off to have it inside, and you're saving time to warm up, that the guys, you're saving money overtime payroll in that way too, because you're not having them sit there and have a truck idle outside, get everything warmed up before they can load it to go out on the road in a storm. They can come in, it's warm, hop in it, do their pre-trip, start it up, the hydraulics are warm, you're not having hoses blow because it's too cold, put too much strain on it, now you go to work. So I think that's a big advantage to that.
Thank you. That brings us past 8 o'clock.
That's it? Okay.
just, can you touch upon the radiant heat?
Yeah.
Last week we heard radiant heat is gonna just make condensation.
Okay,
And I guess I thought the radiant heat
yeah.
is not gonna be, it's
Yeah,
like 50.
I've had an opportunity to work in a commercial building similar to this with radiant heat in the floor.
Yep.
I worked as a mechanic in a regular shop with a hot air heat, and we were wet and cold all winter long, and the floor never dried where it was hot air. The radiant heat, you can keep the thermostat much lower. We kept ours at 60 degrees, and every day I would be in a t-shirt in there working. And the floor would dry off quickly, because that's where the heat's coming from. So when you think about bringing, trucks in there that have just been washed, or, they've been out in the snow, and so everything's dripping off and stuff. And I don't know, the experience that I have in talking to other people that have had experience with commercial buildings like this with the radiant heat, is that that's really the way to go if possible.
So the condensation, the concern was condensation of
In my experience,
It's
it was a
not an
lot
issue.
less. We would bring a piece of machinery in. I work for an equipment dealer. We'd bring in a piece of machinery that was covered with snow. Bring it in, let it sit for half an hour. It would melt and drip off on the floor. You'd squeeze you down the floor. 5 minutes later, it's dry. We didn't have condensations on the windows, anything like that. So if somebody has experience that maybe it wasn't a properly installed
I'm hoping
system.
that's the case, because
Maybe the building
I have
was-
radiant in my garage. I
Yeah.
haven't hooked up yet, and
Yeah.
I was concerned.
Maybe the building that person was referring to was too tight. I don't know.
But those are details that can be worked out if the warrant article passes
I mean,
anyways.
Yeah.
I've had two buildings that I've worked in. One of them was a private contractor, and he wasn't so sure of it, and he loves it, and I've worked in his shop, and he loves it because if you come in the wintertime, any piece of equipment, whether it be an excavator, dump truck, whatever he brings in, within an hour, anything that's up underneath it is warm, dry, it's easy to work on. I've had experience in another town where I was, and they had a highway garage, and they put radiant floor heat in. Within 2 hours, they could have every truck in the garage. Within 2 hours, everything was melted, there was some water on the floor, but the trucks were all dried up underneath, because the heat comes up to it, and they can go right to work on it if they gotta do a repair. If you've gotta crawl around on it, and with big equipment, you don't have a lift, they can lift it up, whether it be a loader or a grader or a dump truck. So you're gonna get on a creeper and crawl into that truck. Now you're in a warm environment, whereas you have forced hot air with a Modine heater in the corner, like a lot of them. You're blowing it in and trying to force it down, and heat wants to rise. It's just gonna keep going to the ceiling. The average temperature, I know, at about 6 feet above the floor with radiant floor heat stays about the same.
Yeah.
At about, anywhere, what you said, anywhere between 65 to 70 degrees. And you put fans in the ceiling periodically, paddle fans, and it just keeps it down and circulates the air. And I have never seen in either garage any type of condensation on that time of year.
There's also, there'll be a ventilation system because it's required now to have carbon monoxide detectors. And if the levels get up to a certain point, then it kicks on whatever we have for a ventilation system to change the air. Or if you open the door and bring a piece of equipment in or out, with the radiant heat, the recovery time is much faster because you have that mass of concrete that's up to temperature versus air. Because if you have warm air, think of, the radiant heaters that you stand next to and you're immediately warm, but also that mass too, because it heats the objects, not the air. If you have hot air heat and you put all the hot air outside, it's cold. But if you're using that mass to run that radiant heat, it heats up much quicker because everything in there is warm, not just the air. So, all set?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All set?
Good, thanks.
All right.
Thank you, Jan.
Looking to add to it?
Not to that, I'd like to just make a couple of comments about Article 12, which is the police union contract. We have had to search far and wide in order to fill vacancies in the department, and I think this is important for the consistency of the department. If people are coming to Weare, they want to know that there's a contract in place. And, with so many openings in the state, and we're competing for whoever's out there looking to be a member of the police department, I think we need to have a contract in place. This contract, the facts of it are that there's a 2% COLA, and the union is the same as most police departments of any size. They're on a step schedule. There are 10 steps. There would be in this contract 10 steps, and each step would be 3.5%, so that those people who are in the department now and qualify for that would get a 3.5% step in addition to the COLA. So that's what the contract is all about. Plus, right now, the department is paying 7% of their insurance premiums. Under this new contract, the officers would pay 10%, which would bring them equal with everybody else in the town. There are also language changes that are valuable to the town that were negotiated. When we negotiate, it costs us money too. We have to have legal counsel when we negotiate, and so every time that we have to go into these over again, it costs us more money in legal expenses. So this contract, which calls for the increases that I just described, along with the insurance offset, which is pointed out in the mailer, would help stabilize the department. It's one more step towards stabilizing the department. So I would just ask everybody to look closely at it, read it closely, and give it due consideration when you go to the polls.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is public comment. And I think we're good there. Any correspondence? Anybody get correspondence? Other business? Okay, I move to adjourn.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Good night.
Everybody.